He's your congressman, Congressman Jim Moran.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks for giving Brian a standing ovation there. Well, in the words of somebody who really doesn't deserve to be ever quoted, this is huge. Much sounding like that. But it's a huge headquarters, but most importantly, it's a huge election here. This is the epicenter of the national Obama campaign, because we've got to win Virginia. If we're going to win Virginia, it has to happen here. So, I suspect you know that. You are the frontline troops. You're the ones that are going to have to deliver. Now, this office, this Fairfax Falls Church office, is historic. You know, when the Museum of American History asked the Obama campaign, we want to take an office that made the grassroots campaign work, that elected the first African-American president, and yeah, there you go, that's an applause line, but that really changed history. And the campaign said, look to the Fairfax Falls Church office. They took that office that was over on Lee Highway that Kyle Learman was running, and it's in the Museum of American History. And this campaign is going to be just as historic, because now we know what President Obama stands for and has delivered. And we couldn't have a more stark contrast with his opponent. You know, as we know, when President Obama took over, 8 million jobs have been lost. 4.5 million just in the last 18 months, the last 18 months of the Bush administration. President Obama has gained back more than 2.3 million of those jobs. And, you know, when people try to find fault, you know, you have to bear in mind, if you fall down a cliff, it's easy to fall. It's real tough to climb back up. You know, a stock market can drop 50%. But then to regain, it has to go up 100%. It's tough to recover, particularly in the worst economic fall that we have experienced since the Great Depression. And let's think about this. Mitt Romney has told us he likes to fire people. Think about this. He enjoys firing people. At a time when our president has been doing everything possible to hire people, to enable them to provide for their families, to fulfill their potential. But you can't do that if you don't have the resources necessary. That's why President Obama has been pushing for fair taxation and pushing for an adequate investment in our physical infrastructure, our public transit, our roads, our bridges, our water and sewer systems. It's jobs, and it's an investment in the future of America, and in our human infrastructure. I don't know if many of you read, there was an article just last week, for example, on the front page of the New York Times. It talked about the thousands of people who are looking for jobs, and in many places, there are those jobs. But they need the training to have the skills to fill those jobs. In Seattle, for example, of the thousands of jobs available, there was only money to train 6% of the people who were needed to fill those jobs. Same thing, Atlas Van Lines went down to Kentucky. Hundreds of jobs. But they didn't have the employment training money to train the people to fill those jobs. And it's happened all over the country. Mitt Romney has embraced the Ryan budget. It's really the Romney-Ryan Republican budget. But what it does is to cut 62% from programs for the middle class and for those struggling to get into the middle class. Cuts those programs. Why? Not to solve the deficit. It actually makes the deficit worse. To pay for tax cuts, more tax cuts for the rich. 28% reduction. I know I'm throwing around a lot of names, but this is a lot of numbers, but this is a pretty sophisticated audience, and you get these numbers because we're going to have to show this isn't just rhetoric, this is reality. This is what we're faced with. Under the Romney-Ryan Republican budget, millionaires. The average millionaire in America today, under the Ryan-Romney budget, would have a tax reduction of $394,000 from current law. $265,000 for the Ryan budget, and then an extension of the Bush tax cuts for the very wealthy, which President Obama rightly wants to correct because it's just unfair. When 93% of income growth has gone to the top 1%, well, what's wrong with this picture? You know, the top 1% own 90% of our country's wealth. That's not what America's about. Franklin Roosevelt understood that at a comparable period after Herbert Hoover, and he hired people. And by hiring people, giving them jobs, giving them back their dignity, that gave us the resilience to really save this planet from Nazism and from fascism. Because we showed we had the strength because Franklin Roosevelt believed in Americans, believed in their potential. That's what Barack Obama does. That's what he represents. He has faith in the future of all of our people. He doesn't buy into this survival of the fittest, winner take all, because he knows that every American is of priceless value. And that's what we're fighting. And you know, when Mitt Romney says, I don't really care so much about the poor, I don't worry so much about the poor. Well, Barack Obama is building on the legacy of Lyndon Johnson. You know, with the Civil Rights Act and Medicare and Medicaid and the Great Society, and think of what that has produced. Think of how stronger a nation we are today. And that's the legacy that Barack Obama is building upon. So when Romney says this budget of less government, more wealth for the wealthiest, is that he called it a marvelous budget. Who uses terms like that anyways? But Barack Obama builds on the legacy of John Kennedy, who asked us all to give back to our country to have a stronger nation, where all of us play a role, where all of us are part of the growth of this economy. That's what this election is all about. I mean, this is serious stuff. We need all of you. Barack Obama needs all of you. Because we need his leadership. Desperately. Now, there's a lot of people in the audience that I want to recognize, but one of them in particular, who I saw, she's in incognito. She just put some food in her mouth, but I want Margot Horner to step forward. Come up here, Margot, because this is the chairperson of the 8th District Democratic Committee. She worked so hard. There you go. A sustained standing ovation, Margot. All of you are leaders. All of you are going to represent thousands of votes that you're going to bring out. You're going to deliver them on Election Day. You're going to make sure that we affirm the leadership of Barack Obama. that we keep a good thing going, that we make it great, because we have one of the finest presidents ever in American history. And he's had such a tough job because, frankly, he succeeded one of the worst presidents, and not the worst in American history. But the Republicans want to bring us back to those 8 years of the Bush administration, which were probably the worst. You have to go back to Herbert Hoover to find a worse time. This is a new dawn in America. We're going to show the rest of the world what we're capable of. We're going to show each other. You're on the front line. We have to deliver. This is so critical. Let's get it done. Thank you.